I heard the scream before I understood it was my own. The mug slipped from my hand, shattering against a kitchen tile, coffee splattering across my bare feet in a sudden burst of heat. I barely felt it. All I could see was a message glowing on my phone screen. 7 words that cracked something deep inside me with a violence I couldn't process. You need to tell him before I do. My heart didn't just pound. It convulsed. A roar, electric panic shot through my chest, tightening everything until I couldn't breathe. Because the name above the message wasn't one I expected. It wasn't some stranger. It wasn't spam. It was my boss, Mala, and the message wasn't meant for me. For a second, my brain refused to connect the dots. My thumb trembled as I scrolled up the thread, each motion feeling like dragging a nail across my own skin. More messages, more proof, not written to me, written about me, and then written about her. My girlfriend, the woman asleep in our bedroom, the woman who'd kissed me before bed, whispered goodnight against my neck, and thanked me for picking up the extra shifts so I could give our son the Christmas he deserved. The woman who apparently wasn't where she said she'd been last week. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I might pass out. I read the messages again, slower, like peeling back flesh I wasn't ready to see underneath. Mala, he isn't stupid. He's going to figure it out. Mala, I told you I'm not covering for you anymore. Mala, you need to tell him before I do. A metallic taste filled my mouth. Betrayal has a flavor. I learned in that moment. Cold and bitter, like blood. I staggered back, gripping the counter as the room tilted. My chest boned, my pulse hammered in my ears. My fingers twitched, wanting to throw the phone, smash it against the wall, anything to stop those words from being real. But nothing could undo them. Nothing could unsee them. My girlfriend's name wasn't in the thread, but it didn't have to be. I knew. God help me. I knew. And still, some pathetic, shrinking part of me whispered maybe it's something else. Something explainable. Something I could forgive. Something that wouldn't destroy our family. A lie I wanted to believe, because the alternative was falling apart. Footsteps sounded behind me, soft and half asleep. Then her voice, groggy, warm, familiar, cut through the thick haze of dread strangling me. Babe? What was that sound? I froze. She stood in the doorway, wearing my old t-shirt, rubbing sleep from her eyes like nothing was wrong. Like she hadn't been planning to tell me something that would rip my life in half. Like my boss hadn't accidentally sent me a message meant to be a warning about her. My throat tightened with so much pressure it hurt to swallow. Dropped a cup. I managed, my voice low and rough. She yawned, stepping forward, concern touching her eyebrows. Are you okay? You look pale. I couldn't speak. Couldn't think. All my instincts screamed ask her. Just ask her. Drag the truth out and end this torture before it devours you from the inside. But I didn't, because behind her, down the hall, I could hear the tiny, sleepy shuffling of small feet, our son waking early again. And the world inside me cracked in a different way then. A softer, deeper one. I didn't want him to hear shouting. I didn't want him to see her cry. I didn't want to watch the life we had built implode before the sun was even up. So I swallowed everything. The anger, the fear, the betrayal. It sat like burning tar in my chest. I'm fine. I lied. Her eyes searched mine, reading me too easily. She always could. You sure? No. God, no. Yeah. She hesitated, something flickering over her face. Guilt, maybe, or fear. But she covered it with a small smile and stepped past me to make coffee, as if nothing inside our world was splintering. I stared at her back, at the familiar curve of her shoulders, the way she tucked hair behind her ear. The everyday intimacy of her movements suddenly felt foreign, wrong, tainted. My phone buzzed again. A new message. From Mala. My stomach clenched as I glanced down. We need to talk. Today. Cold washed over me, like someone had opened a door to winter and shoved me inside. This wasn't just about my relationship anymore. Mala was my boss, a hard, sharp woman who rarely hid her opinions. She'd always been strict, but lately she'd been different, watching me more closely, making comments I didn't understand, throwing me looks that lingered too long. I'd chalked it up to stress. But now, Now I saw it for what it probably was. Hints. Warnings. And I had missed every single one. My son shuffled into the kitchen, dragging his blanket, hair a wild mess. He climbed into my arms automatically, sleepy and warm. I held him close, burying my face in his curls, desperate for grounding, for some anchor that didn't break me. "Daddy," he mumbled. "Yeah, buddy. Why are you squeezing me?" I forced a shaky laugh. Just needed a hug. He wrapped his tiny arms around my neck, trusting me in a way that made my chest ache. He had no idea anything was wrong. No idea our world was cracking at the edges. She smiled at him, brushing his hair back tenderly, and something twisted inside me. A cool contradiction. I hated her in that moment, and I loved her even more. That was the worst part. Love doesn't die just because trust does. I set him down gently. "Go get dressed, okay? We'll go out for breakfast." His face lit up and he ran off. She turned to me again. "Breakfast out? You said we needed to save money." The word struck deeper than she intended, because I thought of all the extra hours I'd worked, all the nights I'd come home late, all the mornings I'd left early, all the sacrifices I'd made. For us, for her, for a future she might not have even wanted anymore. "I'll make it work," I said quietly. She bit her lip, studying me. "You're really sure you're okay?" "Yeah." Another lie. She didn't look convinced, but she nodded slowly. I cleaned the broken mug, wiping the cold coffee from the tiles. Every movement felt surreal, like I was performing someone else's morning routine while my life hovered above me, ready to drop. As we got ready to leave, my phone buzzed once more. A final message from Marla. "If you don't come in early, I'm coming to your house." My breath caught. She wasn't bluffing. She never bluffed. And for the first time that morning, a darker fear stirred beneath the heartbreak. What if this wasn't just about infidelity? What if there was something worse? What if the betrayal ran deeper than I imagined? I glanced at the woman I thought I knew better than anyone. She was tying her hair into a mess of bun, humming softly under her breath, completely unaware of the storm rising around her. Oh, pretending to be. A chill slid down my spine. Something was wrong. More wrong than the cheating itself. More wrong than the lies. I could feel it, an offbeat in the rhythm of our home. A shadow behind her eyes I hadn't noticed until now. A tension in her smile. Something had been happening for a long time, and I had been too tired, too trusting, too stupid to see it. As she slipped her shoes on, she caught me staring. "What?" she asked softly. I opened my mouth, but I couldn't make words form. Everything I wanted to say felt too big, too dangerous, too explosive to unleash in front of our son. "Nothing," I whispered, and in that moment, I felt something inside her shift too, like she knew I knew something, even if she wasn't sure what. A ripple of fear crossed her expression, quickly hidden. I filed it away. A clue, a hint, one of many I planned to unravel. Because whatever she was hiding, I wasn't sure I wanted to know. And at the same time, I knew I had no choice. The truth was coming, and Marla would make damn sure of it. She waited on the porch long enough that I could hear the rhythm of her shoes against the wood through the doorframe. 3 slow steps, a pause, then another 3. The sound felt like a countdown. I stood frozen in the hallway, our son playing with a toy train at my feet, oblivious, humming to himself. My heart was a frantic animal inside my ribs, seeking an exit. I had imagined this moment 1,000 times since the messages. Imagine confronting her. Imagine storming into the office. Imagine a clean, violent end where everything was said and then we walked away into separate, if broken, futures. Reality never obeys the neat lines of imagination. The knock was sharp, authoritative. The kind of knock that never asked permission. She called my name before I reached the door, the tone brittle. "It's Marla. Let me in." Someone who had the power to fire me could not be denied on her own doorstep, not easily. My hand trembled as I opened the door crack. Marla filled the frame, tall, immaculate, wearing a gray coat that made her shoulders look like armor. Her hair was pulled back so tightly it erased softness from her face. There was something drained and furious in her eyes, like a storm contained in a glass. "Morning," she said. The word had no warmth. "I'm here. I thought you might be avoiding me." I wanted to close the door, to deny that the messages were real, to deny that the woman in my house and the woman at my office were part of the same betrayal. Part of me wanted to laugh, manic and bitter, because there I was, letting a boss who'd been sexting me behind my back stand on my porch and threaten my life. "Come in," I heard myself say. My voice sounded too calm, almost polite, which made my insides writhe. She stepped in with the casual authority of someone who owned a room. She glanced at the living room, at our son, then at my girlfriend who had appeared behind me, a pale, small figure with eyes too bright for someone who had been keeping secrets. The way she looked at Marla was not the face of a lover caught. It was more complicated. There was guilt and fear, but also defiance, like a woman who had made a choice and was now facing the consequences. Marla didn't look at my girlfriend. She looked at me. "You didn't come in early," she said, like a prosecutor noting a missed deadline. My mouth found words before my brain did. "I thought, my son, I told you to come in early." Her tone cracked on the last word, not with softness but with an odd, tired sadness. "We don't get to do things halfway, Daniel." She called me by my name in a way that felt intimate and clinical all at once. She used the full weight of it, the name my mother said like a plea and the name my colleagues used in the meeting room. I felt exposed under it. My voice broke. "What is this about, Marla? What's going on between you and her?" For the first time, the hardness in her face changed, and a crease of pain settled between her brows. She glanced at my girlfriend finally, and something ugly flickered in her stare. Then she looked back at me, and the storm unleashed. "You're fired," she said, as if the word were what she had come to say. They were not sudden. They had been rehearsed. They landed in my kitchen worse than a slap. Fired, as in from the job that paid for this house, for the after-school programs, for the steady, grinded-out payments that had scraped the life we had together into something stable enough for a child. Fired. The syllables fell like bricks. "You can't," I started. "You can't just." "I can," she cut in, "and I will." My girlfriend made a small noise, like a sucked-in breath, but said nothing. Her hands clenched at her sides until the knuckles whitened. There was a strange, fatalistic calm about her that made my teeth ache. "Why?" I asked. The question came out like a demand and a plea. Marla's eyes glinted with something I couldn't read entirely. Anger, yes, but also humiliation, exhaustion, and something resembling grief. "You've been reckless," she said. "You thought nobody was watching. You thought loyalty was optional because you were tired and because you thought you could get away with it." "My loyalty?" I asked, stunned. "What are you talking about?" She crossed the kitchen in 2 measured steps and leaned over the counter as if she could make the truth lean in the same direction. "You've been taking balances off a ledger. Small things, Daniel. Tiny holes that add up. You were sloppy. You were careless. Maybe you thought a tired dad could be forgiven. Maybe you hoped your situation at home would buy you leniency." Blood rushed to my head. "That's not true," I said. "I would never." Marla's jaw tightened. "You signed off on reimbursements that didn't match receipts. You approved vendor invoices that were red flagged. You were the person who cleared the accounts last quarter when our audits picked up a discrepancy. You didn't notice, or you thought you could fix it later. Either way, the company can't have that." My breath came short. The world contracted to a single point of cold. This was not just about the thread on my phone and a woman in my bed who had been living 2 lives. This was a trap, and the barbs were catching everything. My job, my finances, my sense of self-worth. "I didn't," I said, and the words dissolved into thin air. My mind was frantically sifting through files and spreadsheets I had not touched in months, looking for an explanation that was not betrayal. My girlfriend spoke then, soft but steady. "That's not true. He does his job. He works hard." Marla's face shifted like a mask. For a second, there was a flicker, something like pity, then it hardened again. "You would say that," she said. "You were the one who routed the invoices through your account. You were also the one who told me to give him a second chance when the first irregularities showed up. You told me he was a good father." Her words landed like accusations against my chest. My girlfriend flinched as if struck. "This is I started, but Marla didn't let me finish. I never wanted this, Daniel. Her voice had a fracture that made the kitchen feel colder. I don't enjoy taking people down, but we have to protect the company. We have to be airtight. And you were the weak point. The sentence hung, but my mind rejected it. It couldn't be true, not all of it. He was a single dad who made mistakes, late reports, missed audits. But criminal? Colluding? The idea felt obscene. Marla, I said, quietly, if there's an audit, you can show me. Show me what you found. I'll fix it. She shook her head. It's not your fixes that concern me. It's intent. It's conversations you had that looked like cover. It's payments redirected into accounts I can't trace. We brought in external auditors when the trail got cold. We had to start connecting names. Your name came up. My girlfriend's breath hitched. What are you saying? She demanded, voice trembling. What is he supposed to have done? Marla's gaze sharpened on her. For a fraction of a second, I saw something like a private history pass between them. Shared lunches, careful jokes, a tightness in the air that I had once mistaken for mentorship and now realized might have been something else entirely. I'm saying you should be honest, she told my girlfriend. With him and with yourself. My girlfriend's shoulders sagged as if the words had finally pushed through a lid she had been holding. Tay spilled out in a torrent she tried to hide. She swallowed. I didn't tell him because I was scared. I was scared of what it would do to Eli. I was scared of losing my job. I thought I could manage both. She looked at me then with a rawness that made my stomach lurch. I didn't want to hurt you. She sounded small, not because she deserved to be, but because she was collapsing under the weight of her own decisions. You didn't tell him because you were sleeping with me, Marla said, voice flat. The words were clinical, almost cruel. They carried the weight of inevitability. And you didn't tell him because you thought I'd keep quiet. You said it would be better if he didn't know. My hands clenched into fists so tight my nails bit my palms. The room tilted. For a wild second, I saw jagged images, late-night texts, the heat of two people in offices after hours, a click of a laptop closing like a secret being extinguished. Shame washed over me, black and cold. Is that true? I asked my girlfriend, the question detonating everything. She nodded, too quickly. Yes. Silence expanded until it swallowed the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of a car alarm down the street. My son toddled in then, dragging a blanket, and looked from one adult face to another, sensing the gravity of the air. He asked a simple question, what's wrong? And it obliterated me. Everything about this morning was a series of betrayals layered on top of each other. There was the intimate betrayal, my partner choosing another. There was a professional betrayal, my employer accusing me of crimes I didn't fully understand. And then a third, more corrosive betrayal. Everyone I trusted had their own survival to think of, and that calculus did not include me. Marla stepped back, her jaw set. I'm giving you until the end of the day to clear your desk, she said to me. Security will escort you out. Human resources will call you with the paperwork. And if there's any attempt to obstruct the investigation. She didn't finish. She didn't need to. The words "you're fired" had been a hammer blow. The rest were the nails being driven into the coffin. I felt the room compress, my world narrowing to the sound of my son's breath and the tick of the clock over the microwave. How could you? I started, but the words failed me. How could she? How could you? How could anyone sat in the same house as a person they loved, and yet be a stranger? My girlfriend stepped toward me, hands out like a plea. Don't go, she whispered. Please, don't let them take everything. We can. No, I said, surprising myself with a firmness. I have to do this clean. For Eli. My son's name felt like a rope thrown into the dock, an anchor. Marla's expression softened, briefly and dangerously. You're not the only one losing something, she said. You're not the only one who's scared. Maybe she meant it. Maybe she was a betrayer and the betrayed. The moral edges blurred until everything looked like mud. My son reached up, patting my knee. His small fingers were a miracle against the chaos. I looked down at him, at that trustful, uncomprehending face, and felt a split in my ribs. Protect him, the voice said. Protect him at all costs. Later, when the agents and HR came, because they would, because the company moved like winter storms in summer, when they took my photo badge and my company laptop and escorted me past glances full of speculation, I would replay this morning until it was a film I could not turn off. I would ask again and again why the woman I'd woken beside had felt she needed to hide her life from me. I would ask why my boss had the right to walk into my home and take my livelihood like that. But none of those questions mattered then. What mattered was simple and brutal: a man with a child, a woman who had been both lover and liar, and a boss who came to the door and yelled, "You're fired." The rest, what had been done, what would be revealed, was a long, jagged road ahead. The only thing I knew with any clarity was that I had been blind, and the cost of that blindness was steep. I swallowed, the room spinning, and looked at the two women in my life, the one who had promised to stand beside me and hadn't, and the one who pulled the rug from under my feet while speaking as if she was saving me. "Get out," I said softly to Marla. "Give me until the end of the day. Let me say goodbye to my son without being let out in handcuffs." She considered me, and for the briefest second I thought she would refuse. Then she nodded once. "Fine." Her voice was tight, like a wire under pressure. "You have until 5. She turned to leave, pausing at the door. "And Daniel." "Yes." "Don't make this about blame. Make it about truth." She walked away, and the house seemed too big and empty for the life that had been in it a few hours before. When the door clicked shut, my girlfriend collapsed onto the sofa, burying her face in her hands. My son toddled over and climbed into her lap, righting the imbalance of the room with a child's simple presence. He looked at me with a question that demanded an answer that was not ready yet. I sat down at the kitchen table and rested my elbows on my knees, my head in my hands. The coffee I had not finished that morning had gone cold. The shards of the broken mug glittered like little, accusing teeth on the floor. Outside, the day moved on, the dog walkers, the sun creeping higher, oblivious to the atomization of my life. Inside, the walls felt too thin and the silence too loud. Somewhere, an accounting team was opening a folder and finding the trail that would lead to me. Someplace, 2 adults were holding the threads of their survival and deciding whether I would be cut loose. And between all of it, a small warm body slept in a room that would soon know the smell of fear and the taste of goodbye. The clock on the microwave read 9:12. I had 8 hours. I would use them to find whatever truth I could. I would use them to hold my son until the world tried to take him. I would use them to learn exactly how deep the betrayal went and whether I could survive its depths. I didn't move for a long time. The ticking of the microwave clock filled the house like a metronome guiding my descent into a world I no longer recognized. 8 hours. 8 hours to understand how my life had unraveled under my own hands without me feeling the thread pull. 8 hours before the company, the police, or something worse came storming in. My son slept curled beside my girlfriend on the couch, his small face buried in her chest, one fist pressed against a T-shirt in innocent trust. I felt jealous of that trust, angry at how easily he gave it, and at how I had done the same for the better part of 5 years. I watched her quietly, the way her chest rose and fell. She wasn't sleeping. Her breathing gave that away. She was crying silently, shaking beneath our son but trying not to wake him. The kind of crying that came from places guilt wasn't enough to explain. The kind of crying that held fear. And something in me twisted because despite everything, despite the revelation, the betrayal, the job hanging over my head like a guillotine, I still wanted to touch her, to ask if she was okay, to believe this could make sense somehow. It wouldn't, but the instinct was there, stubborn and pathetic. After a few minutes, she wiped her face and looked over at me. Her eyes were swollen, red, rimmed with a kind of shame you don't bounce back from easily. "We need to talk," she whispered. I nodded. "Yeah, we do." "Not here," she said, glancing down at our son. "Can we go outside? Just for a minute." A warning flickered inside me. Every instinct told me not to give her distance, not to risk her walking out the door. But I looked at my son, breathing peacefully between the two of us, and something gentle but painful cracked through my fear. "Okay," I said, "but just a porch." She eased our son off her lap and tucked a blanket around him. He didn't even stay. I envied that kind of sleep, the kind untouched by betrayal or consequence. The porch felt colder than it should have for late morning. A faint breeze brushed the railing, carrying the smell of cut grass from our neighbor's yard. She pulled her sweater tight around her, but I wasn't convinced it was the wind making her shiver. She didn't sit at first. She just stood there, hands twisting together in the anxious way she had when she'd practiced speech she wasn't sure she should say. "Start at the beginning," I said, leaning against the railing. "All of it. No lies, no half-truths. I need the whole picture." Her chin quivered, but she nodded. "You deserve that." "Then tell me, because right now, Marla's version of you is the only one I have." She closed her eyes as if bracing herself. "It wasn't supposed to happen," she murmured. I never meant to get involved with her. I swear." "Then why did you?" She opened her eyes slowly, and they were full of something I didn't expect. Confusion. The raw kind that comes from not knowing yourself as well as you thought. "I don't know," she said. "I wish I had an answer that made sense. At first, it was just attention, I guess. She noticed things you didn't. She praised things you forgot to. She bit her lip hard enough to draw blood. And I don't mean that as an accusation. You were working all the time, exhausted, fighting to give us everything. I knew that, but I felt like I was disappearing. And Marla, she made me feel seen." The words hit me in places I hadn't expected them to. I pushed back the urge to defend myself, to say I tried my best. Because I had, but trying doesn't fill the empty spaces someone else steps into. And then, I asked quietly. She pushed boundaries. I said no at first. Really. I told her it wasn't right. I told her I loved you. But she looked away, cheeks burning with shame. She's persuasive. And I was weak. I let myself believe it wasn't hurting anyone. It was only a few times. And it stopped months ago. The way she said it, soft, trembling, told me she believed that was a comfort. It wasn't. So why is she threatening to tell me now? I asked, "Why today?" She hesitated, hands shaking now, because I ended it wrong. She thought it meant more than it did. She thought I would leave you. "Would you have?" The question fell out of me before I could stop it. Her breath caught, and tears spilled again. "No, never. I love you. I chose you. I stayed with you." "Then why didn't you tell me?" I whispered. "If she was threatening you, if she was dragging me into this, why didn't you warn me?" "Because I was terrified," she choked. "I thought if you knew, you'd hate me. You'd take Eli and leave. I thought I could protect you both if I just stayed quiet and kept things separate." "That's not protection," I said. "That's deception." "I know." Her voice was collapsing structure. "And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But Marla isn't doing this because she cares about the truth. She's doing it because she wants to hurt me. And she knows the fastest way to do that is through you." A sickening realization rolled through me. So all of this, firing me, the accusations about the money, the audit, it's what? Revenge. She swallowed. She didn't answer. "Tell me," I demanded, my voice low but razor-sharp. "Did you steal from the company?" A long, horrible silence stretched between us. And then she whispered, not on purpose. Cold shock rattled my bones. "What does that mean?" She wrapped her arms around herself, shrinking inward as if her own truth might swallow her. "The reimbursements, they were mistakes. I didn't know the receipts had to be submitted in a certain order. I thought Marla was approving them, but she wasn't." "You put my name on them," I said slowly. "Yes," she whispered, "because you had clearance. It was easier. I didn't think it mattered. I thought," she shook her head helplessly, "I thought she'd fix it quietly to protect us. But when I ended things with her, she flipped. She said if she went down, she'd take me with her. And if she took me, she'd take you too." I felt like I'd been stabbed. Not a clean stab, something jagged, twisting. "And the vendor invoices." I pressed. She winced. "She told me to route them through your account. She said she needed them processed fast and you were more efficient. I didn't know the amounts were flagged. I swear, I didn't." "Why didn't you tell me?" My voice fractured. Why didn't you come to me when things started going wrong? She collapsed onto the bench, hands covering her face. Because I thought I could fix it before it touched you. I didn't want to drag you into a mess I created. I didn't want you to look at me like this. Like she was a stranger. Like she was a wrecking ball dressed in familiarity. Like she was the architect of my downfall. The wind picked up again, brushing loose hair across her face. She looked so small, so breakable. And yet, every crack in my life traced back to her choices. I sat down slowly beside her. Not touching. Not close. I needed you to be honest, I said quietly. I needed you to trust me. She nodded, sobbing. I know. And I failed you. I failed us. She hiccuped on a breath. I don't want to lose our family. I stared out at the street. Cars passed by. Dogs barked. Life moved in blissful ignorance of the storm that was about to eat us alive. Marla has all the evidence pointing to me, I said. If she hands that over, if the company believes it, I'm the one who goes down. I'll tell them the truth, she whispered, reaching for my hand. I'll tell them everything. I'll take the blame. I pulled my hand back. You're going to do that, I said, but not for me, for our son, because he deserves a father who isn't dragged into something he didn't do. He deserves a home that's stable. She nodded vigorously, as if trying to hold on to the promise. I looked at her then, really looked. The woman I loved was still there, buried under fear and mistakes and shame. But so was someone else, someone capable of deceit that had endangered everything. We're not done talking, I said, voice flat, not even close. But right now, we need to get ahead of this. What do you want me to do? She asked shakily. Everything, I said. You're going to walk into that office with me. You're going to tell them exactly what happened, exactly what Marla asked, every detail. Her breath stalled. Right now? Yes, before she has time to spin it any further. Her fear was immediate and visceral. She'll destroy me. She already has, I said. Now it's time to limit the damage. A car door slammed next door, jolting the moment. She wiped her eyes again and nodded slowly, as if bracing herself for a firing squad. But I wasn't done. There was one more thing. One last question, I said, and I need the truth, no matter how ugly. She looked at me, terrified. Were you in love with her? The silence that followed was not quiet. It roared. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again, like she'd been hit with something she didn't expect. And when she finally answered, it was not the answer I was prepared for. She didn't speak at first. Her lips parted, trembled, closed again. She stared out over the porch railing as if an answer might be hiding in the quiet street, an escape route, a way to rewrite the truth without saying it. I asked you a question, I said softly, painfully aware that whatever came next would be the kind of truth that doesn't heal. It scars. Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. Her voice was barely audible when it finally emerged. I don't know. The words didn't explode. They imploded. Quiet, devastating, the kind of truth that collapses a ribcage inward instead of outward. Something in my chest folded, a clean break without sound. I don't know if I loved her, she whispered, eyes filling. At the time, it felt like something strong, something I couldn't explain. But now it feels like a mistake wearing a mask, and I can't tell which feelings were real and which were just me being lonely and stupid. The breeze lifted her hair gently, as if trying to soften the blow for me. It didn't help. I'm sorry, she said again, voice cracking. I'm sorry for all of this, for everything. I drew in a slow breath that scraped like gravel against my chest. All right, I said quietly. Then we don't waste any more time. We leave now. She wiped her face with shaky hands. Now? To the office. Yes, I said, before Marla buries me completely. She hesitated, fear flickering across her face like lightning. But she nodded, because hesitation was no longer an option. Our son was still asleep on the couch. I carried him to his room, tucked him in, and left a note taped to the door in case a neighbor came by to check on him as we'd arranged countless times before. As we stepped outside, she reached for my hand. Not for love, Out of fear, out of dependence. I kept my hands in my pockets. We didn't speak on the drive. Every streetlight felt like a checkpoint. Every passing car felt like someone rushing home to a life that was still intact. And I couldn't stop replaying the last week, the last month, maybe the last year, every moment I'd overlooked, every night she stayed late because traffic was bad, every email Marla sent me at odd hours, every time she flinched when I mentioned work. And underneath it all, like a steady pulse, the realization. I had been blind, willfully blind. She had been lying, willfully lying. And Marla had been waiting. The corporate building loomed ahead, glass and steel in cold efficiency. My girlfriend's breath fogged the window as we pulled into a visitor spot. She sat frozen, gripping the door handle but not moving. "I can't," she whispered. "I can't go in there. She'll destroy me. She'll twist everything. She already did," I said flatly. "And now she's trying to destroy me too. This is the only chance to pull the truth out before she makes it disappear." She shook her head violently. "She knows people. She can turn the company against us. She can make this so much worse." "Then we go together," I said, "and we tell the truth before she writes her own version." At last, she nodded, small, fragile, but real. Inside, the office was too quiet. Morning meetings had already started, leaving the lobby echoing with nothing but the faint hum of fluorescent lights and the whir of the front desk printer. We rode the elevator in complete silence. When the doors opened on the accounting floor, it felt like stepping into a courtroom. People glanced up, then away, whispers floating like dust in the air. My girlfriend stayed close behind me, her hands trembling so violently she had to clench them into fists. We reached Marla's office. The door was slightly ajar. I could hear her voice, controlled, calm, talking to someone. "If the numbers don't align, we need to escalate to legal. I don't want this tied to us any more than necessary." My girlfriend sucked in a sharp breath. "She's already doing it," she whispered. I knocked. The talking stopped. A long pause. "Come in," Marla's voice said. We stepped inside. Her office was immaculate as always. Clean lines, cold colors, everything sharp and deliberate. Marla sat behind her desk, perfectly composed. But when she saw us together, her expression froze for a fraction of a second. Surprise, annoyance, something darker flickering behind her eyes. "I told you to clear your desk," she said to me. "Not bring your personal matters into my office." "And I told you we needed to talk," I answered. Her gaze flicked to my girlfriend. "You don't belong here." "Yes," I said before my girlfriend could shrink back. "She does." Something electric shifted in the room. "We're here to tell the truth," I continued. "All of it. Not your curated version. The real one." Marla leaned back in her chair slowly, folding her hands together. "Be very careful, Daniel," she said, voice low. "Dangerous. If you accuse me of something without proof." "I'm not accusing," I said. "I'm explaining. And she's going to help." My girlfriend stepped forward, shaking so hard I thought her knees might give out. But she didn't break. "Not yet. Marla," she started, her voice trembling. "I should never have," she swallowed. "Our relationship. I know it was wrong. But this, what you're doing, it's not right either." Marla's jaw tightened, but she kept her expression otherwise neutral. "Our relationship was consensual. What's happening now is business." "No," my girlfriend said, voice gaining a sliver of strength. "You told me if I didn't end things quietly, you'd ruin him. You said if you went down, you'd take me with you. You said you'd redirect the blame to him. If I didn't stay away from him, you said—" "That's enough," Marla snapped, standing so abruptly her chair rolled back an inch. The air thickened. "You think anyone will believe you?" Marla hissed. "Your credibility is gone the minute you admit to the affair. You routed the invoices. You signed the reimbursements with his login. All the mistakes point to him because you made them under his access. And you expect anyone to take your word over mine." Her words sliced cleanly, surgically. My girlfriend didn't back down. "No," she whispered shakily. "Not my word. The emails." Marla's face drained. "What emails?" she said carefully. The ones you thought you deleted. My girlfriend reached into a bag and pulled out a small flash drive. You forgot I had access to the shared archive before you removed me from it. Marla blinked. Just a blink. But fear, real fear, flashed across her face like lightning. My heart pounded. I didn't know she had those. My girlfriend held the tiny drive with trembling fingers. You gave the instructions. You told me to route the invoices. You told me to use his login. You told me to fix the receipts and said you'd cover the discrepancies later. You left a paper trail. Marla. Something inside Marla cracked then, not loudly, not visibly, but absolutely. You don't want to do this, she said, voice softer now, almost pleading. You think you're saving him, but you're sinking us all. No, I said. You sank us. She's just pulling the wreckage into the light. Marla looked at me then, a flicker of emotion breaking through the armor. Regret. Maybe something else. Something unspoken. You could have looked the other way, she whispered. You could have walked away clean. You walked into my house, I said, and tried to burn it down. She exhaled a long, slow breath, then nodded once, as if sealing something in her mind. Very well. She sat back down, smoothing her coat, regaining her cold composure. Give me the drive, she said calmly to my girlfriend. No, my girlfriend said, stepping closer to me. Marla clasped her hands together. Then you leave me no choice. The legal team will be notified. The audit will escalate. And you, she said, her eyes locking onto me, will watch everything you love go up in smoke. Unless, I said quietly, I go to HR first. Marla went still. Unless we take the drive to them before you call legal, I continued. Unless we tell them what happened before you rewrite it. A long silence settled between us. Marla's eyes darkened, not with rage, but with calculation. She knew she was cornered. Finally, she spoke. You think HR will protect you? You think the company cares who initiated what, as long as someone burns? She leaned forward. They will fire all of us. Me. You. Huh. They will purge everything to save face. I can live with losing the job, I said. What I can't live with is losing my freedom or my son because of something I didn't do. Her eyes flicked toward the flash drive again. Small, simple, devastating. For what it's worth, Marla said softly, I never wanted to hurt you. But you did, I said. You both did. The air in the room felt thick enough to choke on. My girlfriend reached out, taking my hand lightly, this time not out of fear, out of resolve. And then Marla's face changed. Not anger, not guilt, something else entirely. She looked past us, toward the door. Footsteps approached, 2 sets. HR, security. They had already been called. Marla sat back, a single tear escaping before she could stop it. It's too late. The door opened. 2 security staff. 1 HR manager. Unsurprised. Efficient. Daniel. The manager said, we need you to step out of the office. My girlfriend sucked in a breath. No, wait. We have evidence. I'm sorry, the HR rep said. We have to follow protocol. I held up my hand. No, I said, you need to see this first. I took the flash drive from my girlfriend's trembling fingers and placed it on the desk in front of the HR manager. Everything is on there, I said. Read it before you escort anyone out. The manager hesitated, torn between instructions and liability. I'll need to report this. Yes, I said. You will. Security moved toward me, but I didn't step back. If you escort me out before looking at that drive, I said evenly, you're complicit in firing an employee based on manipulated evidence. The HR manager paled. She picked up the drive. Security stopped moving. In the breath that followed, the entire office seemed to freeze. Everything, my job, her job, Marla's power, our future, balanced on a tiny piece of plastic no bigger than a keychain. The HR manager finally said, we'll pause all actions until we review the contents. Marla looked down at her desk, defeated. When we left the office, my girlfriend clutching my arm, my knees barely holding my weight. The hallway felt too bright, too loud, too sharp. Outside, in the cold parking lot, she turned to me. Did we do the right thing? Her voice was small, fragile, terrified. I didn't answer right away, because the truth was complicated. She had betrayed me. She had endangered me. She had lied. But she had also saved me. Or tried to. And the future, ours, Hayes, mine, our sons, was now tangled in consequences none of us could predict. Finally, I spoke. We did the honest thing, I said. Right or wrong, we did the honest thing. She exhaled shakily. Then she asked the question I knew was coming. Can we fix us? I looked at her, the woman I loved, the woman I resented, the woman who had broken my heart and then tried to piece it together with trembling hands. I didn't give her the answer she wanted, only the truth. I don't know, I said, but we start by surviving today. Her eyes filled, but there was something new in them. Determination. We got into the car. I drove us home. And as the office building shrank in the rearview mirror and the winter sun rose over the city, one thought pulsed through me. Steady, painful, honest. Betrayal doesn't end a story. Sometimes it begins a real one.